Somebody cared for me, had me on their mind, took the time and cared for me. I'm so glad they cared. I'm so glad they cared. I'm so glad they cared for me. I spend a lot of my time thinking about how I can make a difference in the world. I spend a lot of my time thinking about how I can make an impact in individuals' lives. For all I can remember, I've always just wanted to be used by the Creator. Lord, just use me. I was born in Mississippi, poverty, very rural. The town I grew up in for most part of my childhood was a town called Wiggins, Mississippi. And about 3 miles north of Wiggins was a small unincorporated community called Bond, Mississippi. To give you a clue on how small it was, the population of both places together is 4,500 people. Town's so small with my maternal side of the family and my paternal side of the family, I'm literally related to almost every black person there. The town is so small, you have to put on clothes and make sure your hair is done. You can't go with your headscarf on to the Walmart because you're destined to see somebody you know. During this time growing up in Mississippi, we spent a lot of time at Great-Grandma Suge's house. Now, Great-Grandma Suge, she lived in her mother's house because her house, back in the day, there were some problems with it. So I spent a lot of my childhood in my great-great-grandmother's house. So this house had no central air, so when we were hot, we put the fans in the ceiling fans in the window and put a little ice pack there so you could stay cool. No central heat, so we would stand with the wood and the gas stove and, burn our hands and our butts. To flush the toilet, we would have to get a bucket and fill it up with water and pour it down the toilet for it to flush. One of our favorite chores was to hang clothes on the line because we didn't have a dryer. Now, growing up in Grandma Suge's house, it was really no place fun, really, for a child. However, because my mom worked 2 and 3 jobs because she had to take care of my sister the best way she could, my aunts and uncles, they did everything from being truck drivers to working at the lumber factory to working in fast food to cleaning hotels, all crazy hours. So most of the time, we ended up at Great-Grandma Suge's house. My sister and I would be dropped off in the morning before Head Start, and most of the time it was before the sun even came up. I would go get in Grandma Suge's bed. My sister would go to the other room where my mom's mom would stay in Grandma Tootie and get in her bed. Now, I always grew up thinking that I was Grandma Suge's favorite because I was the one and the only grandchild who was able to sleep in her bed with her. However, I realized as time went by that I was the only grandchild who didn't kick her at night, my hand wasn't over here, I didn't move throughout the night. But fast forward, we would get up and we would go to Head Start and we would come back to a totally different environment. The bed was neatly made. In the South, the old folks say you're not supposed to get in the bed unless you go into sleep. So we would sit on the floor. Like I said, we didn't have cable, so Grandma Suge would make us watch Oprah. We had an antenna that allowed us to get ABC, PBS, and Fox. So we would watch Oprah, 3 p.m., ABC, Channel 13. Grandma said, y'all got to watch Oprah because she's somebody. And I want y'all to get y'all lessons so y'all can be somebody too. There was one episode that Oprah had where she told the story of her growing up experience. She's from Kosciuszko, Mississippi. Her grandma was a maid, and her grandma used to hang clothes out on the line, and Oprah would watch her. And she would say, Oprah Gail, you got to watch me now because you're going to have to learn to do this for yourself one day. And Oprah said that the thing we all have in us called human instinct hit her and said, no, this is not going to be my life. Now, most of us who grew up in the South, most of us who know black grandmother, she probably didn't say that out loud. She wasn't finna be planting any switches. But that instinct to thrive, not just to survive, that instinct to reach for something better than what you are seeing, I grabbed onto that and I ran with it. It was that instinct that led me from a high school dropout factory to being the first of my mother's children to graduate from college. It was that instinct that led me from a state like Mississippi that's still haunted by its racial injustices to interning in the administration of the first African-American president. It's that same instinct that led me from a fatherless home to being a father figure and a big brother to so many kids who have been incarcerated in adult jails and prisons. Now, I don't say that for the applause. I appreciate it. I say that because there is power when someone speaks into a young child's life and allows them to see better for themselves and to change their trajectory. Thanks to Grandma Suge, who couldn't provide me much material wealth, didn't have the connections to get me here and there, but she loved me. She cared for me. She made me watch Oprah. And since Head Start, I have seen every episode of The Oprah Winfrey Show. I wish they would have a heads up Oprah thing, I would always win. But even when I went to Atlanta in the 4th grade because my mom ran in the middle of the night from a man who beat her for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, nothing prepares you to see your mom being whipped with a belt. So we ran. Even when I got to Atlanta from Mississippi, I held on to that ritual to go home, 4 p.m. Eastern Time, ABC, Channel 2 in Atlanta, to watch Oprah. For most of my life, and all of my life actually, Oprah has been a constant and consistent rainbow in my cloud. I came here to American University in the summer of 2010 and had the awesome privilege my senior year of having Julian Bond as my professor. Legend, civil rights icon. And in our class, the first semester, we had to write a 20-page paper on a civil rights icon, and we had to interview that icon. I had the distinct honor of being able to do mine on Dr. Maya Angelou. One of the greatest experiences of my life because it was just a few months before she passed away. And in one of those interviews, she said that your crown has been paid for. Put it on your head and wear it. Paid for by the slaves who came here and were sold on auction blocks so you could be the fruit produced by their seed. Paid for by those who bled and died like Vernon Damer and Medgar Evers and Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and Fannie Lou Hamer, who said, I question America. Is this America the land of the free, the home of the brave, where we have to sleep with our phones off the hook because our lives are threatened daily just because we want to have our freedom? Paid for. We've been paid for. Because you and I have been paid for and someone has been rainbows in our clouds, we have the responsibility to be that for someone else. There are 1 in 3 young people in our country who will grow up without ever having a mentor, structured or natural. That means today approximately 16 million young people will reach the age of 19 without ever having someone to validate them, to say, I see you, I hear you, what you say and you as a person matter to me. I'm reminded of a young man who I worked with who was incarcerated as an adult at 16. He called me one time and said, "I just want to say thank you." And I said, "For what?" He said, "For accepting my collect calls, for sending me books, for being here for me, for never leaving my side, for taking care of my mom. She hadn't seen him in over a year. For never seeing me as a monster." Tears began to form in my eyes because, one, thank you is the greatest thing you can say to someone. Those of us who are believers, thank you is what we say to God. But second, what he was saying is, you are the first person to see and treat me as a human being. Dr. Angelou told me in one of our interviews, if you don't remember anything else out of our conversation, remember this statement that comes to us from the BC period by a Roman playwright named Terence with one R. It says, "I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me. I am a human being. Nothing human can be alien to me." What does that mean? That means all of us has the same human instinct to be as great as Dr. King, to be a Mahatma Gandhi, to be Mother Teresa. But all of us has the same human instinct to commit the darkest act. Because we are human beings, nothing human can be alien to us. You have to remember that. And we have to understand that the most important responsibility we have in our country is to uplift the humanity and validate our young people. Most people say, "Deon, I've tried it," particularly when we talk about kids who come from at-risk environments. "I've tried it. Those kids today, they're a whole different breed. There's no hope for them." However, research shows us that most kids who grew up without a mentor, without a caring adult, always wanted one because they understand the power of mentoring. Jonathan McClard needed a mentor. Jonathan needed a rainbow in his cloud. Jonathan was witty, he was funny, he was intelligent. He wanted to be a psychiatrist. He wanted a side hustle. He wanted to open up a bar and grill on the beach. But we lost Jonathan 3 times. We lost him at the age of 16 when he was charged as an adult, sent to an adult jail. We lost him emotionally when he was actually sentenced and he was told he would be going to spend 30 years in an adult prison. Jonathan never made it to that prison because the third time we lost Jonathan, just a few days before his 17th birthday, we found him hanging from his cell. Jonathan needed somebody in the system to care. Jonathan needed a rainbow in his cloud. Jonathan needed someone to validate his dreams. On this journey in life, you have the opportunity to be someone's rainbow. Grandma Suge passed away my freshman year here at American University, and I remember the night so well. Just coming from choir rehearsal, getting on the American University shuttle, coming back to campus, and between Tinley campus and Ward Circle, I get a call that Grandma Suge has passed away. Human instinct says that you should cry, you should yell, you should wail, you should be filled with grief. It was one of the hardest family deaths that I've ever dealt with in my life. But at that moment, I flashed back to sitting on the wooden floor, watching Oprah, and great-grandma Suge sitting in her blue rocking chair that was fixated between her bed and her dresser. In the darkest times, when there seemed that there may not be a light, she had a red United Methodist hymnal on her dresser. She would pull it out. In the darkest times, she would say, "Precious Lord, take my hand, lead me on, let me stand. Lord, I'm tired, I am weak. Lord, I'm worn through the storm, through the night. Lead me on to the light. Take my hand. Precious Lord, and lead me home." I thought about how could I best honor her life. I thought about how would she want me to continue? And I knew that it was the only way that I could continue, the only way that I could honor her life was walking the purpose that the Creator has provided for me. And that purpose is to make sure that every human being, particularly our young people, has the opportunity to live their best life. We all can do that. And what I know for sure is that all of our lives are enhanced when we give what others have given us. For some of you, it may be writing a check to a national or local organization that focuses on uplifting young people. For others, it may be structured where you have a one-on-one mentor, where you volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club once a week. And for some of you, it just may be a simple smile and good morning and an encouraging conversation to a young person you see on public transportation or walking down the street. But you have to make the decision to do it. And when we make that decision to care, when we make the decision to be a rainbow in someone's cloud, a young man can live with the hope of being the next president of the United States instead of the fear of being the next Michael Brown. A young woman can live with the dream of being the next CEO or Melody Hobson instead of the fear of having to be the next young woman in her family who will have to sell her body to make ends meet. A young person who identifies as lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, genderqueer, same gender loving can live with the hope of being the next Supreme Court justice instead of contemplating suicide because they are not loved by those who should love them most. If we care more, if we decide to be a rainbow in someone's cloud, if we will do this, then Khalif Browder, a young man who was charged as an adult, never saw a courtroom, but spent 3 years in New York's Rikers Island. 1 out of those 3 years, he spent it in solitary confinement. He finally was released because they found out what they had charged him for. He actually didn't do it. He tried school, but it didn't work out. If we cared more, when Khalif's mom walked outside her backyard one day, she wouldn't have found her son hanging from his bedroom window. We have the power to care and uplift our young people, training the next generation of leaders. They'll go and serve in public office. They'll become teachers. They'll become the next Beyonce. They'll do well and they'll walk up on a stage. And when they're asked about how did they get to where they were, what was it for you? They'll say, somebody cared for me, had me on their mind, took the time and cared for me. I'm so glad they cared. I'm so glad they cared. I'm so glad they cared for me. Thank you.